Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. We are doing, I guess you can call it an emergency podcast, Parker,
Semi.
because normally we do it on the back end of the week following our YouTube live, but this week we're jumping into it early on a Monday night because big news happened. Obviously, our guys Brian Clinton and Jesse Crittenson did their Oklahoma drill, and they did an emergency podcast when one All-American linebacker, Danny Stutsman, decided he was going to change his mind and stay in Norman. And we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about the transfer portal. We're going to talk about recruiting, National Signing Day right around the corner. We've got a big announcement to tell you guys on this podcast that's going to take place on National Signing Day with us, OU Insider, and a lot of recruits and commits. So we'll talk about that. Signees. We'll talk about that. Obviously, the transfer portal, Danny Stutsman, Billy Bowman, and a ton of off-season Sooner news as they get to practice ahead into the Alamo Bowl. But first, Parker, you've got a ad that you have to read.
That I do, Brandon. You're not getting off scot-free. Just keep that in mind. This episode.
Why am I not getting off scot-free?
This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you, folks, by Manscaped. The season for a fresh cut is finally here with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have just launched their 5th generation performance package to help you avoid another silent night in the bedroom this year. Take care of your special snowflake with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and watch your South Pole shine like never before. Get the best stocking stuffer of all by going to manscaped.com and using code OU Insider for 20% off plus free shipping. Mrs. Claus will thank you. Brandon, what are some of your favorite things about
you're such a jerk.
the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra?
All right, I didn't go off air to laugh at that. I love that ad. It makes me laugh every time. I mean, look, I use it for more of my chest grooming and a whole bunch of other things. Obviously, I don't have a lot of bumps. You know, it feels smooth on the skin. And the ladies seem to like it, I guess. So outside of that, I would say it's been worth it. It's one of my favorite things. The razor is not dull by any stretch of the imagination. So any man knows what I'm talking about when it comes to that. It can be kind of uncomfortable.
And folks,
so
Brandon is a bearded man. I am not.
Am.
If you are of the bearded persuasion, or anybody in your family has too much scruff, look no further than the Manscaped Beard Hedger Pro Kit and Handyman Electric Face Shaver for all your facial hair needs. If you got nasty nose hairs, you can save the day with the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and ear hair trimmer. And if your boxer game is weak, you can take care of the chestnuts with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0, featuring their signature jewel pouch to keep you calm, cool, and collected. So get 20% off and free shipping with code OU Insider at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use code OU Insider. Say ho, ho, ho to a well-groomed mistletoe with Manscaped.
Ho, ho, ho.
That's all. We can talk football now.
There we go. Yes, I actually do the Lawnmower 5.0. I actually like that. It does a really good job grooming the beard. No doubt about that. Always groom the beard. I'm not a big scruff guy. So anyways, we digress. Want to thank Manscaped for the sponsorship. And now back to your regular scheduled programming, talking about Danny Stutsman returning for his senior year at the University of Oklahoma.
How about that, baby?
Is huge. Look, okay. There were reports out there, and the reports were true.
They were.
I want everybody to understand this. Like, the reports were true on the meeting. Venables asked Stutsman during that meeting, and we threw our report up on OU Insider shortly after and said, look, it's not 100%, and it's very volatile behind the scenes. And we left it at that. Throughout the week, we kept saying, look, the announcement, we continue to hear it's volatile, but he's still leaning towards the NFL. As of Saturday night, about 5 p.m. or so, they were, I'm just doing evening, it's 5 p.m. starts, so the evening-ish time. I was told by numerous sources that Stutsman was talking about trainers and who he was going to work with on his speed, his strength, all that in Tampa, or if he was going to go down to Miami, or if he was going to go to California, or all these, like they were working on the details of all that. And then Venables called and talked to Steve and talked to Danny. Steve Stutsman popped up, talked to Danny, and they laid out everything. And they talked and they talked. And then at some point during Saturday night, things flipped. Danny went from NFL bound to staying. And it didn't just start on Saturday. Like this was like building up throughout the last half of the week, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It was a 3-day span of just a lot of Oklahoma dotting their I's, crossing their T's, working on some NIL stuff, working on making sure that Stutsman knew that, he can't fall too far from where he is now. You can go get gap plans, obviously, in today's age of NFL draft, where if you were projected at this much and you go and you play another year of college and you get drafted here, or something was to happen to you, that insurance, that gap insurance will fill in. Now, obviously the insurance goes up. You've got to pay some deductibles and all that type of stuff to meet all that and get that money that, that it's gap for a reason, because there's a space in between what you got and what you were projected to get. Right. So there's a lot of different things that came into play here, but at the end of the day, it just looked to be a really, really, I guess, fortuitous move for Oklahoma and Danny Stutsman, because as Steve put and said to you guys on the radio today, you and Steelman, there was more pros than cons, and it was a win-win situation for him. NIL, the gap plan. He didn't mention the gap plan, but playing in the SEC and the potential of not only that, but moving himself up. He got a third round grade. I can confirm that. So, I mean, people want to say that if it wasn't that.
That's the thing, Brandon, is so often the wise long-term move is to wait another year. There are certainly examples of guys that have chosen to stay behind in the collegiate ranks for an additional year, and it has hurt their draft stock. Those are few and far between. Odds are, like, typically speaking, the guys that choose to stay an extra year when they already have solid draft stock are the guys that end up drastically improving that draft stock. Now, what happens with Danny Stutsman, I can't say. Only time will tell. But generally, when guys bounce early for the NFL, it's because, A, they're not getting drafted any higher than their grade at the time, i.e. Marvin Mims last year, right? Marvin Mims is a perfect example. Somebody that was never going to be a first-round pick, but he ended up being a second. That was about as good as he was going to do. He didn't have much left to do collegiately. But more often than not, the guys that bounce early are guys that either get that grade and that's as high as they're getting and they know it and everybody knows it, or they're guys that get caught up in the allure and the promise of short-term financial benefit. Guys that just can't pass up the opportunity to sign an NFL contract and all the zeros that's going to add to their bank account. But if you're willing to play the long game and willing to postpone those plans a year, sometimes you can be rewarded greatly for your patience. And I think a great example of this in the present day would be Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler will be off the board, I would say, in day 2 in this upcoming draft here in the month of April. That would not have been the case last year. Certainly would not have been the case after 2021. And that was a guy that was kind of an open secret. He wanted to be done with college football as fast as possible. He just wanted to get to the league, right? But he continually, I mean, over the span of 2+ years now, has made wise long-term decisions and refused to get caught up in I shouldn't call them empty promises, but the shallow promises that come with agents' assurances that, oh, you're going to be drafted here, you'll make this much money, you'll make a 53-man roster. That's not always true. And how many guys has Oklahoma presumably sent to the league the last few years, only to watch those guys not hear their names called on draft day? Jalen Redmond, Adrian Ely, Kennedy Brooks. So many guys have come through Oklahoma in recent years and have had the opportunity to go and get drafted with another year in the system in the Crimson and Cream. And instead, they've elected to bet on themselves. And look, pushing all your chips in the middle, okay, I respect that. But at the same time, so often that gamble has not been rewarded. And I thought the way that Steve put it earlier when we had him on the radio was spot on when he said, if you're Danny, you don't have the what if factor lingering in the back of your head if you're in an NFL training camp next year and you're fighting to make a 53-man roster as, say, a 4th-round pick. Are you going to make a 53-man roster? Sure. But what are you going to be making? How clear of a path to playing time will you have? And would you have been better off just running it back in the SEC at Oklahoma for one more year and learning under the best developer of linebackers in the nation in Brent Venables? So the decision is made for Danny. Now, he plays his senior year at Oklahoma, and then he's draft bound. And there's no two ways about it. No ambiguity whatsoever, no decision to make of your own accord. You play your senior year, and then it's time to go to the league.
Yeah, no, look, at the end of the day, if he gets better in the SEC, and shows that he can play and be more physical, put on about 10 or 15 more pounds, because that's exactly what everybody I've talked to, he'd be a first rounder if he was 10 or 15 pounds heavier. And he kept his speed, which I talked to a couple scouts. I've talked to some player personnel people. I've talked to a lot of people around the country about all this. And from what I've been told is that everybody expects Danny to put on another 10 pounds. He's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year that he's been in Oklahoma. Like if you go look at a photo of Danny in 2021 and compare it to Danny today, and I'm stating the obvious, but some people struggle. I mean, Kip Lewis struggles to put on weight, right? Like there's just certain people that do. But Danny is substantially larger. And yet he's probably faster. And they feel like a guy that is freakishly athletic like he is, he could get to 240 and still be a 4.5 guy. And I asked him, well, you think he'll be a 4.6, 4.7 guy if he put on another 10, 15 pounds? And this person who is around NFL people every week, and that's all he does is deal with NFL stuff. And they said there is not a world in which Danny Stutsman runs a high 4.6, 4.7, even at 250 pounds. Like he's just that freakishly athletic. So again, big win. If he can go in and prove that he can be consistent, he was really consistent through about 9 games this year, and then was up and down a little bit the last 3 or 4 games, right? But the year before he was consistent for 4 games. So if he can get all 12 games or all 15, if they play for a national title or whatever, and you expect like his progression has just been, trajectory has been like straight up. Like there is no going down for him. Like he's still got a long ways to go in his learning of the position, of everything. And you see Jaron Kanik, kind of on that same trajectory where super freak athlete, still learning a position, and a lot of people still believe that he's got a chance to be really special there. But Stutsman is just Parker. He has a chance with everything. Is not going to be as spread out in the SEC as it is in the Big 12. So he's going to be playing a lot more confined. So a guy of his speed is going to be able to cover more ground. Is it possible to make more tackles because you're in more close spaces as far as how the game's played? I mean, there's a lot of things working in his favor for returning, and some people don't understand that. And I think you have to give Papa Top, Steve, Stutsman, and Danny, and just his people credit for not just doing what most people in this world would do, and they would jump at the money, right? Second, third round money. It's millions of dollars.
Sure.
And instead listening to the information, dissecting the information, and making a decision on what is best for you, the person, and not you, the wallet, you and your wallet. So that is him and Billy Bowman to make that type of a decision. That's a rare thing to have that happen, not just once, but twice on guys that both had third round grades. Both had third round grades. Like, there are people, Parker, on the internet saying, oh, well, it had to be because they got their draft grades back. No, bros. Draft grade says bye-bye. Because if you get a third round grade, you can work yourself into late second, early second, possibly late first round with a good combine. Like, everything says leave, and they stayed because they love the university. They're obviously without NIL. I don't think this ever happens, Parker. I don't think this ever happens.
NIL's a kicker for a lot of things these days.
Yeah.
Shoot,
no matter how much you love the
flip
NFL.
the number 2 player in the country. That's, you want to talk about NIL. That's what NIL will do these days. But
if I asked you a question real quick, I want you to answer this.
Okay.
Who do you think was one of the bigger influences on him returning? Like, just, it's really obvious, but it's not at the same time.
Brian Bosworth.
Bingo. I was told that he said, I didn't have a chance to return to the university I love because obviously he was kicked out and had to go to the developmental draft. You have that chance.
Yep.
Don't make the same mistake I did. Money's always going to be there. Money's always going to be there.
That's what's up, Boz.
And I don't know that that's verbatim what he said, but I was told tonight that in a roundabout way was a conversation that was had because he and Bosworth are pretty close. Now, Boz may come out and say that never happened, or it never happened to that extent, but whatever. I've heard that from at least 2 or 3 different people, and that he was very influential with Danny, not just in that decision, but throughout the whole year. He has been close and kind of mentoring Danny a little bit, which I think we've seen play out publicly.
We have,
to be honest.
Absolutely. So, it's not hard to make that connection, to connect those dots, as it were. Here's what's interesting, Brandon. With Stutsman back in the fold and Billy Bowman back in the fold, I am curious to see how things play out with Woody Washington, who is really the only other Sooner who could return theoretically, but has kind of been expected to leave and take his talents to the NFL. Now, I will say this much. This has kind of been my message throughout, and I will stick to it. I don't expect Woody Washington back in an Oklahoma uniform in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But I say it's 100% a certainty that he's gone? No. And I think Bowman returning and Stutsman returning and them announcing their decisions in such close proximity, man, that might create a little bit of momentum, a little bit of pressure, and might plant the seed in Woody Washington's head that, hey, you know what? Maybe I want to come back for a 6th year and chase a championship with my boys, the money's always going to be there, as you just said, Brandon, why wouldn't I come back, start for a 5th year at the University of Oklahoma, and try to help lift this defense into not only national relevancy, but an elite type of company, and help push Oklahoma towards an expanded 12-team college football playoff and locking down a berth in that field. Now, I was doing some digging today, and basically the situation with Washington is this. Still leaning towards the draft. That's still what I expect. But again, it is not a 100% certainty. And so, yes, I'm telling you there's a chance. At this point last week, who would have imagined Danny Stutsman would be back at Oklahoma for another year? Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens down the stretch here with Woody Washington. I know for a fact that no decision will be made with finality until after the bowl game. He's going to play in the Alamo Bowl. From there, he'll make the decision as he sees fit.
Yeah.
But if you could get Woody Washington back, Brandon, imagine this. You bring back 8 of 11 defensive starters for the SEC next year. And the 3 guys that you're plugging in to those 3 vacancies, the 3 starting roles that you have to replace, those 3 guys could potentially be Peyton Bowen at safety,
or
PJ
RSJ
Adibawara at the edge in place of Rondell Bothroyd, and Deidre Hicks at defensive tackle. And even if it's not those exact 3, man, to think about anybody and everybody that could fill those 3 spots on the defense. Could be RSJ at safety. Maybe it's R. Mason Thomas on the edge. Maybe it's Chris McClellan at defensive tackle. Any way you slice it.
Yeah.
Shoot, man, that's a pretty fearsome defense when you look at that personnel grouping top to bottom.
I mean, yeah, the defense went from one of those defenses where they need more talent, they need more talent, they need more talent. And in essentially 2.5 cycles, because I don't think I can give 2.25 cycles, because I don't even think, or maybe not even that, 2 1/10. I don't think you can give. I don't think you can give BV credit for all of the 2022 cycle, because a lot of them were already, they were going to come to Oklahoma one way or the other. Now, that said, Kobe McKenzie, that's all BV because he flipped and then flipped back. Gentry Williams had USC grabbing at him, but he decided in Florida, and he just decided, look, didn't you guys just tell me not to go to USC, and now you're out there? I'm not going there. Like you're kind of hypocritical for that. So he stayed. And then you have a lot of other, transfer portal players and all that they were able to kind of create a baseline of what they needed to do. And then 23 and 24 with the transfer portal, with the high school, they've accumulated a ton of talent. And then now they're going into the SEC, and Oklahoma doesn't look bare on defense. Like, it looks like a defense that if they can just put a piece here, put a piece there, they might just be pretty legit next year in the SEC.
And what is truly amazing, Brandon, is that, you talk about flipping it in the course of 2+ recruiting cycles. If you just rewind to Oklahoma's defensive starting lineup, week 1 of the 2022 season, last September, it's astonishing to think about how drastic the turnover has been. I'll read you their starting lineup from week 1, 2022. Reggie Grimes, Jalen Redmond, Jeffrey Johnson, Ethan Downs, David Agwebu, Stutsman, obviously, Deshaun White, Jaden Davis, Billy Bowman, Key Lawrence, and Woody Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Reggie Grimes, a guy who started
Yeah.
Every single game for this program in 2022 was nothing more than depth chart fodder this year for Oklahoma, even when healthy. He was an afterthought at defensive end. So that case study right there illustrates how far Oklahoma's defense has come strictly in terms of personnel in the last year. It's amazing.
It truly is. And I don't think it's just on the defensive side of the ball. I think you got to look at the offensive side of the ball as well, because you got Gavin Sawchuk, Jackson Arnold. I mean, wide receiver, they could have everybody but Drake Stoops coming back, right? And add Jamori Macklin or Deion Burks. Like, pretty awesome. Tight end, you're losing Austin Stogner. You're probably going to lose another player to the portal. And you're adding Devon Mitchell. You're getting a healthy Caden Helms back. You're getting a healthy Caden McIntyre back. And on top of that, you've got a chance to add not one, but two portal guys. Offensive line. Yeah, you're losing potential first rounder, right? And Tyler Guyton. It happens. It happens every year for Bill Bedenbaugh, actually. You're losing Andrew Rame, who was a 4-year starter at center. That doesn't happen every year. That stinks. But you've got, obviously, you got Everett and you got Bates, right? Like, you got two guys that can be legit, like, really, really good potential all-conference centers right there. At right guard or left guard, depending on what way you want to play him, you have one of the guards, you have Caden Green. The other tackle, you have Jake Sexton, right? So now you fill in with Spencer Brown at one of the tackles, who is a longtime starter, ton of experience, really good player for Michigan State, right? You bring in a Gino Vandermark, Gino Vandermark from Michigan State, who will be visiting Oklahoma later on this week.
Speaking of which, completely off topic, I saw one of our industry competitors, I won't say whom, rank Brock Vandegrift as the number 7 quarterback in the transfer portal. Grayson McCall was ranked like number 23 or something like that. Like, what are we doing here?
A guy that has a lot of so Eastern Carolina's quarterback was ranked. Really?
Coastal Carolina. Coastal
Huh?
Carolina, yes.
Coastal Carolina, you knew what I meant. Coastal Carolina's quarterback was ranked. That dude has been legit for like 2 seasons. Like, really good.
3 seasons.
3, yeah.
4 seasons?
And there's no offense.
Seasons.
I think Vandergrift has been, or had a chance to be good. He just was at a school that had a ton of 5 stars. He was going to get buried. And at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. But to rank him that high, I guess, I mean, that was look, I do think he has NFL potential. I do. He's got an NFL arm. He's a coach's kid. His dad's Greg is a really good coach in the state of Georgia Preps. Long-time head coach, actually. And so he has the pedigree. He doesn't have the production. And to just base that solely off of, well, he was up there with Caleb Williams coming out of the 2021 class, so we're going to put him here.
Yeah, I watched those two at the Elite 11. Caleb Williams and Brock Vandegrift are on 2 different planets.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. But you get what I'm saying. And then the other, obviously, you named Vandermark, but then they got Fabichi Nwawu. And look,
a former walk-on at North Texas.
A former walk-on who was a freshman All-American, mind you, as a walk-on was a freshman All-American. How crazy is that, by the way? And on top of that, he's been an all-conference guy. both years. He's a really good guy, really good player that has a lot of big name programs coming after him, but he's loyal. The guy is loyal. Seth Luttrell brought him to North Texas, created that guy as far as helped develop the guy. And it seems like there's a potential now. Noah was going to listen, like he's going to listen to these other schools. He's going to potentially visit another school or two. And, sometimes no matter how loyal you are to somebody, you can find a better fit. But my odds are on him landing at Oklahoma still. My odds are that Spencer Brown, Gino Vandermark, and Fabici Nawawi are going to be your 3 offensive linemen that you get. And all 3 have a chance to be really good at Oklahoma. And they serve their purpose. They serve the purpose of what the portal is supposed to be about, is going to a place that can better you, that you can better the program, that both sides benefit. And I think that's what you see in the offensive line gets that they're potentially getting, right? You saw that with Dylan Gabriel going to Oregon. Like both schools are going to benefit from that, right? The intention of the transfer portal, right? Jalen Hurts, how that went about. That's how the transfer portal was intended to work. And now for some, it's a money grab. I'm going to go to the place that's going to give me the most money. It's not about getting better. It's not about going to the NFL. And I know I'm on a soapbox right now, Parker. It's not about doing a lot of things. It's about how much NIL can I get? And I guess I can't fault some of the players for doing that, but I think it hinders some of those players that go out reaching that because they move on for the wrong reasons. And so their heart's not really in it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I hear you.
And I think at the end of the day, the offensive lineman that Oklahoma's getting, their heart's in it. They want to be Sooners. And I think that says a lot. Sam Franklin, obviously from Tennessee Martin. What do you have, like 1,400 yards rushing this past season? Like it was something absurd. Really good football player, really good running back. What does he got? USC, a bunch of SEC schools. Everybody's offering that guy, right?
Yeah. Big time offers. He's a hot commodity.
Yeah. By the time this podcast releases, if you go to OU Insider, if you're on OU Insider, you will have already known this, but he will be visiting OU, taking an official visit on Tuesday. So there's a lot of movement for Oklahoma going on in the transfer portal. I think DeMarco Murray is doing a really good job kind of piecing some things out. I would say Sam Franklin's probably the leader in the clubhouse as far as who Oklahoma's going to get. And then you have Mario Anderson and Trevor Etienne. Those are going to be your 3 running backs that Oklahoma's looking at and has a chance to land. We haven't even talked about Princely Umamelian. Stud DN,
I'm approaching that one with a degree of skepticism.
Me too, but there seems to be some validity to him really liking
There's definitely
Oklahoma.
validity. I traded messages with Princely over the weekend, and I'll say as much. OU's in his top 5.
Mm. Who would you say is top 5 are?
Shoot. Let me see if I can recall. Ole Miss, LSU, Texas A&M were the 3 schools that immediately sprung to mind. And there was one other one I can't recall. But like
Texas.
I think it was Florida. It might have been Florida State.
Oh, it is Florida State. It is Florida State because yes,
go.
That's right. Correct. It is Florida State. Yep. Correct.
So there you go. Pretty clear he wants to stay in the SEC, I think, unless,
he wants to go closer to home.
Florida State is the one notable exception, but I mean, that's as close to an SEC program as you're going to find right now that isn't actually in the SEC. And yeah, he's from, correct me if I'm wrong here, Manor, Texas.
Manor, Texas. Yes, he is from the Austin area. Yes,
It's pronounced
Texas.
Manor.
Yeah, he's moved around a few times, but yes.
Interesting.
Where
Manor.
did his brother go to school at? I can't remember where his brother went.
His brother is at Nebraska right now.
Okay.
Prince Will is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Prince Will. Prince Lee was at Florida. And Manor is the same school that produced Tyler Guyton. Now, what does that mean? Probably nothing, but interesting little coincidence there. I can't recall if that's actually where he went to high school. Princely, that is. I know Prince Will went to high school there. I don't know about Princely off the top of my head, but yeah, I don't know, man. Something just maybe it's because he's really the only edge guy that Oklahoma has hit up. I mean, when an all SEC caliber dude gets in the portal, you'd be a fool not to at least take a peek. But
right.
Also, a guy of that caliber gets in the portal, you know what's going to be thrown his way, and it is money, and a lot of it. Is Oklahoma going to be the highest spender? That's my question.
If they treat him like they treat Danny Stutsman and Billy Bowman, I would say yes.
Do you treat him like you treated Danny Stutsman and Billy Bowman, though?
I don't think so, but I think he's right, that tier right below, that you at least try to come close to that, right? Like if you want an elite edge and you want to get PJ, say the last name for me. I don't want to butcher it.
Adibawara.
Ooh, I did it. Wow.
Very nice.
How about that? PJ Adibawara. So both of those, if you want to give him a chance to develop a little bit longer and rotate in and see what happens by the end of the 2024 season, and maybe you go that route, right? You throw some NIL at him and see. You're trying to win a natty like this. This 2024 team, sans Dylan Gabriel, might be BV's best chance for a few years.
That's probably true.
I mean,
probably true.
And who would have thunk that after 6 and 7 in 2022? How the turntable, what was it?
Yes, it's how the turntables
have turned.
Princely Umamielin, though, he did, by the way, attend Manor High School. Same recruiting class as Tyler Guyton, so those two would have graduated together.
Correct.
Wonder if old Guyton will put in a good word.
Guaranteed. Yeah, I'm actually really excited for next season. Like, I remember last year, it just felt like the doldrums, right? Like, it was like, oh my God, like, could this get any worse? But you were going through the Peyton Bowen drama, the recruiting there, and there were several other dramas, the DJ Hicks stuff. Is he going to flip to Oklahoma? Is he not going to flip to Oklahoma? That hasn't changed in 12 months. We're still there, even though he is at A&M. We're still hearing the same stuff. It's just the roster just looks good because you've seen it, right? There's visibility of what this team could be. You've seen the excellence of what it is and what it can be from Labor Day weekend all the way through week 7, right? You saw how good they could be. That team was dominant. They were the better team than Texas that day. Whatever Texas said, like Oklahoma was up the whole game, man. Shut up. Like, come on, shut up. Like, OU was up the whole game. Don't sit there and say they got lucky, because you had to make a big comeback. You came back, you went up by 3, and Oklahoma goes down and they score and they win the ball game. But they were up for the majority of the game. Don't forget that. I think people tend to forget that, Parker. Like, Oklahoma ran that ball game. Like, they owned the average lead, right? The time leading throughout that game. And they just looked good. And then obviously I think I don't think they hit a wall. I don't think that's right. They hit the injury bug, and I think they got a little too big headed. I think the bye week came at such a horrible time for them because it allowed them to get away from football. Their mind went elsewhere. And I think if they wouldn't have had that bye week, I honestly think they're playing in the playoffs right now. I think if the bye week came after UCF instead of after Texas, right? You're probably playing, you know what I mean? Like, because it allowed you to completely get yourself back into it directly after the game. You didn't have a chance to go celebrate for 2 weeks. Oh, do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I think the bye was well timed from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah,
from
I agree
a
with
mental standpoint, I don't know that it could have been worse timed for
that.
Oklahoma
Awful.
because you go into the bye with that emotional high of the victory against Texas, and it was a very natural juncture at which things could have gotten off the rails, and you kind of almost not necessarily lose sight of the no. I guess what I'm trying to say is you wouldn't lose sight of the big picture, but almost like you became too focused on the big picture as opposed to taking care of business week to week. I think that's the trap that this team fell into. But you know what? End of the day, it is what it is. What happened happened. You're 10-2.
You're 10-2. And there's a lot of positives going into 2024 despite just that schedule, Parker. That's brutal.
Next year,
Yes.
I think it could be a lot worse. It's no cupcake schedule. Don't get me wrong. I think it could be a lot worse.
So they play Ole Miss, who is ranked right above them.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
Do they get Ole Miss at the Grove, right?
It is Ole Miss at the Grove.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
That'll be a fun. That'll be a great road trip.
You get Tennessee at home. Tennessee was 8-4 this year. They're going to be even better next year.
Will they?
I mean, I guess I don't know. They've recruited well enough that they should be, right? But they did lose. They just lost Tyler Barron. That's always tough. That's one of the best edge rushers in college football. You got Alabama at home. I mean, those are 3 ranked teams right there.
Mizzou
ranked really good, top 10 team this year. Now, I don't know if they'll be that next year, but if they continue to do what they're doing in the portal, yeah, probably will be. They're doing really good in the portal.
I mean, you will have tests, certainly. You're always going to have tests in the SEC. But the way I see it is you dodge Georgia. Okay, that's pretty much an automatic L on your schedule, unless you're Alabama the last couple of years. Alabama's the only team that's beaten Georgia since 2020. Think about that for a second. Nick Saban is the only guy that's beaten Georgia since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So you dodge Georgia in year 1. You get Alabama at home. I
get
think
it.
You're pretty fortuitous, all things considered.
Yeah, but in the strength of schedule world, it's still one of the toughest schedules I've ever seen.
Oh, no doubt. But that'll be the case for everybody in the SEC.
I mean, 2025, don't they play Michigan at home on top of their SEC schedule?
Yeah, they do. Oh, boy.
Jeez.
That'll be something.
Holy crap. But I mean, they get, so even their non-con next year.
They get Houston and Tulane.
Houston, Tulane, and who's the third? Is Maine, right?
It's Maine, yes.
But still,
so
Houston,
you get
Tulane.
Willie Fritz.
No cupcakes. Those are not
boys.
cupcakes, man.
No, they're not. But
that's a tough schedule.
Yeah, OU will beat Houston. They'll beat Tulane. They'll beat Maine. They'll win all those non-con games. I feel pretty confident in that.
They'll be, as far as like, I think they'll beat South Carolina. I think they'll beat, like, if you were gonna, like, I don't know. I could see 8-4, and I could see 10-2. And if they're 10-2, they're going to the playoffs. 12-team playoff. I might add. I think if they're 9-3 with that schedule, you're probably going to the playoffs.
I think it depends on if you're playing in the SEC championship game at 9-3. You might need an SEC championship game to push you over the top. Maybe not.
With that schedule, man, if you beat Tulane and Houston, they'll probably have winning seasons next year, right? You beat those two in your non-con.
I guess SEC champion gets an auto bid, so at that point, it doesn't really matter what your record is. But 9-3, you're kind of flirting with danger there.
You're flirting with danger. You're probably right there on the
10-2. You're in.
Yeah, 10-2.
You're
definitely.
In at 10-2.
Yep.
In the SEC, absolutely.
But and with that, I'm going to keep saying with that schedule, I think because the committee likes they like doing that schedule thing, right? They like talking about the schedule.
Yeah, shoot, quality losses might mean more than quality wins these days. That was where Florida State had their undoing. They didn't have a quality loss.
Where Oklahoma had their undoing. Sorry, Oklahoma State and Kansas. They had 2 quality losses, but their quality losses weren't quite as good as who got in before? Oh, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss and Penn State.
Correct. And both of them didn't just have quality losses. They got their asses handed to them in the quality losses. Whereas Oklahoma, they kept it too close against a 9-3 and an 8-4 team. Dadgum them losing to those teams that are in the top 25 or on the cusp of the top 25 on the road and barely losing. How dare Oklahoma do that? You are going to the Alamo Bowl. And speaking of the Alamo Bowl, how about that segue? Arizona. They didn't seem like they had a lot of attrition. Like I was looking through their stuff. Not a lot of transfers. Like it seems like the culture there is pretty well intact. And he did it really fast. I mean, I think it's going to be a fun game. Look, let me ask you this. You saw it on the schedule, right? It looked just like blah, blah, like you're playing Arizona, Alamo Bowl, San Antonio, whatever. I know that's how we kind of looked at it. We're going to be honest, OU fans. We looked at it like that. But now that it's Jackson Arnold, right, he's going to make his first start. And then on top of that, you've got Danny Stutsman and Billy Bowman coming back. Doesn't it add a lot of intrigue to it now, like for fans to want to go and watch that? Like it adds a little bit more zest to it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that last week. That's it's really the only reason I think why this game is compelling.
Like, and you want to go into the SEC with an 11 wins and some momentum for some transfers and maybe flip a few guys.
Like whom, Brandon?
Oh, I don't know. This 5-star defensive lineman, 4-star, depending on who you look at, defensive lineman out of Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, I might add. Pretty good player by the name of Dominic McKinley.
So you're putting him on flip watch?
I am, after what I talked to some people from the A&M side today.
Brandon Drum has Dominic McKinley on flip watch, folks.
No, I didn't say it was flipping Oklahoma, but I think Oklahoma's in. They're in position. I think Texas is making a run. I think LSU's doing all they can.
Obviously, Syracuse. Elijah Robinson is doing his darndest to get Dominic McKinley to move up to Syracuse, New York, which is not happening.
But it's not happening. I think that's just a favor for him, honestly. And then at the end of the day, I believe, and people around A&M that I've spoke to believe, and you know who I talk to, so you know it's legit.
Yeah.
They don't think that he sticks. As a matter of fact, I'm going to report this. I don't think he signs next Wednesday. If he does, it'll be a last-second decision to sign. I'm telling you all. Right now, I don't think the plan is to sign.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, the kid's got this many suitors.
Mm-hmm.
I'd almost be surprised if he did sign next week.
No, he's telling people he's not signing behind the scenes from what I'm being told.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I got told that from from multiple sides of things.
But
So
as late in the game as everything kind of blew up at A&M,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and with how many big time schools and suitors Dominic McKinley had throughout the process, yeah, there's not a chance he's arriving at a new decision within the span of 3 weeks. Just not happening.
No, well, unless he just decommits and commits somewhere else just to get over with because he doesn't want to go through the whole everybody in his ear thing. Honestly, the way he's handled things and as quiet as he is, I don't particularly think he enjoys the process. We know he doesn't like the process. He hates it. So I could see a world where he just goes right before national signing and goes, okay, I'm going to sign with these people and I'm just going to walk in, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be done with it. I could see that happening, but I'm leaning towards it not, because like you said, there's just so many moving parts for him right now. Like everything that he knew going into December 1st just got blown up in his face, right? Like everything got blown up in his face. And then last week, it got blown up even more in his face when Elijah Robinson took off to Syracuse. And for the longest time, they were telling recruits, oh, he's going to stay. He's going to stay. But when you bring in somebody like Mike Elko and you have an Elijah Robinson there, and the players look at him and they look at, I'm trying to think of all the TJ Rushing and all those guys. They're going to look to them before they're going to look to Mike Elko, or at least the guys that were there when Elko came in player wise, because those are their guys. So he's going to want to start like BV did. BV started cleaning house, right? Venables said, out. Everybody out. If you're not going to completely buy in, and there was only a small sect that completely bought in, Parker, and they're still around. But for the most part, Venables just flipped that roster on its head because he wanted his guys. In 2 cycles, would he go through like 70 dudes? Like, wasn't it like 75% of the roster was new in the first two seasons, right? Isn't that correct? Like it was something like that, stat like that?
Yeah. Man, I'd love to look back at that 2021 roster for the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah, right.
See one Alamo Bowl to another in the span of it's going to be 2 years to the day.
I bet it's 80 or 90. I bet it's 80% of the roster is different, is new.
I'd say probably so. Probably close to it. Yeah.
And that's what Elko's doing. I've been told that 100%. So he's cleaning house.
Good. That's what he needs to do.
Yeah.
That's what he needs to do. It's long
he's
overdue
cleaning house
at A&M. Somebody needed to do that.
Yeah, and I think he's been given the go ahead. You're going to lose some games. And I think the fan base understands that it's going to be a rebuild. It's going to be losing games. And so, like I said, Dominic McKinley's world just got kind of blown up in his face in a matter of 10 days. And so did Terry Bussey.
Yeah, it's going to help things, though, if A&M is able to flip a certain 5-star quarterback here in the next couple of weeks, which sounds like there's a decent possibility that happens.
Yes, DJ Lagway. So I think that'll help in the transfer portal more than it's going to help in the high school ranks.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late at that point.
But is having a guy like say the majority of your commits, or even a good portion of
them. They
lost
3 or 4 commits today.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know, man. I think they're going straight portal, bro.
And I can see that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been told, is they're going to go straight portal. They're playing behind and they realize it and they're okay with that. I think they're okay with taking their lickings in the 2024 season. That is what I've been told, is like, okay, it's going to suck, but he's going to have a foundation of what he wants. And then come the 25 class in the 25 portal, I bet you A&M raids that thing like nobody's business. Raids it. Sheesh. And they might do some of that going into this season. But I think it's going to be on a much higher scale.
You think about it, Elko's like, that's basically what he did at Duke. They
Yes. Year one,
they
they
did not
sucked. Year two, they were awesome.
exactly, man. And like Duke is a hard place to win football games.
Well,
It
no,
is.
they were 9-3 in year one, right?
They won games
Yeah, but
certainly
they weren't.
in
They
year
weren't.
one.
They yeah,
Yeah, they weren't like competitive like that
yeah,
until year two. But year
yeah.
two, they made stuff happen.
Mm-hmm. They were
I,
surprising. I
I
remember last year, surprise portal people going to Duke, and we were all looking at each other going, "What?"
I just think it's great that Elko is bringing the model that he applied at Duke to Texas A&M, rather, which again is exactly what needs to happen. Like for far too long, A&M has kind of written their own rules for whoever the head coach has been. And it's high time somebody walked into College Station and said, nope, this is what works. I know this is what works. Uh, we're not going to run things commensurate with what Texas A&M feels is best.
Yeah.
We're going to run things commensurate with what I know is best, what is tried and true.
And as much as OU fans don't want to hear this, college football is going to be more fun if they're actually competitive. Honestly, like winning competitive, not 7-5, not 8-4, like 9-3, 10-2 competitive. It'll be more fun. It'll be more fun in this region. It'll bring the I think the rivalry between the three programs will be back. I mean, it'll be fun. People are going to disagree in the comments. I know they are,
Like,
but
here's the thing.
I enjoy Texas and Texas A&M being good because I think when they've been good, Oklahoma's always been really good when they're good.
Okay, sure. I would rather see Florida win again or Miami win again or Nebraska win again than Texas A&M. That I think moves the college football needle as far as the nostalgia
fact you said
factor.
Nebraska, I'm actually shocked, Parker. We all know
Like,
you hate Nebraska. Yeah, we know it though. Yeah. But it's true. Nebraska does need to be back at some point, and I think Matt Rule's going to get it there. I look, people that are listening, we really appreciate y'all. By the way, this has been a fun. Like I love the transfer portal because it brings so many eyeballs to college football in a way that free agency does in the pros, and I think it's good for it. I think it's good for it in that way. It's bad for it in other ways, obviously. But I think as far as just interest in what is going on at all times in college football, I think the transfer portal has been just a magnificent addition to it. Now it needs to be regulated, kind of like free agency is. And once that takes place, I think in a perfect world, college football is going to be awesomely more fun to watch. It's already a better product because of transfer portal. It's created parity. It's created better football. It doesn't allow the fans to get to know the players the way they used to. And I think that's the downside of it all, plus the NIL part, which is good and bad. But that's a whole other podcast we can talk about in the off season. If you're not on OU Insider, go sign up. It is worth it. Like right now, we're throwing up notes left and right. Parker has a bunch of notes today. I have a bunch of notes today. We talked about new staff additions on the offensive side, support staff, but we have it for you on OU Insider. We've got guys that are visiting OU this week, whether the weekend or the middle of the week. We have that for you. It's on OU Insider right now, VIP. If you are on OU Insider VIP, the Danny Stutsman news today wasn't that surprising. It was surprising, but it wasn't that surprising because Parker, what did we call it the last 4 or 5 days? We said it's continued to be what? Quote, volatile behind the scenes. A lot of indecision, a lot of back and forth. And we gave a lot of, information behind the scenes that I threw out, not just quotes from Steve Stutsman that we have because Parker interviewed him on the radio, but we have behind the scenes stuff of how it took place a little bit, just in a generalized sense for you all to get to see the moving pieces that happened. It was kind of fun. It was kind of wild. Same thing with Billy Bowman. If you were on OU Insider, you knew Billy Bowman was returning. We were the one site that was super adamant about it and never wavered at all. Like continually said, he is going to do it. and we gave examples, as in he's asking for how the portal is, or excuse me, how to lead better in 2024 and all that type of stuff, according to sources. So there are so many things you can get on OU Insider VIP. It is so worth it. We are always in the double digits in new signups every day. And we can't thank you guys so much, Oklahoma fans, for doing that. We can't thank you guys for being members of the VIP site. We can't thank you guys so much for being subscribed to this YouTube channel where we're bringing stuff to you guys. Basketball heating up. Parker, we didn't even talk about basketball. Number 11 team in the country.
We'll hit it on the podcast later in the week. Actually,
yes, we will.
By the time this podcast gets posted, Jesse and Brody have a basketball podcast.
Correct. I was about to get to that. We're about to have that.
That might more accurately be termed an emergency podcast than the one we just did, because who would have imagined the Sooners would be 9-0 right now? But they are. Porter Moser hasn't playing good ball. We've got you covered on all things hoops and hoops recruiting over at OU Insider.
Oh, yeah.
Brody and Jesse have done a fantastic job covering Porter and his resurgent team here in year 3.
Parker didn't do them they do an amazing job. Like, those two cover basketball better than anybody on the beat, honestly. And
no doubt about it.
No question. So go to OU Insider. We'll have softball and baseball coverage exactly like that coming into the season. And we can't wait for you all to see that and come and say hello. We got the VIP chats. We have everything going for you. Have we hit 14,000 subscribers yet on the YouTube?
We're close.
Are we like 10 or 15 away or something like that?
Yeah, we're getting very close.
Come on, Sooners fans. Help us get to 14,000. We've only been on here for a year and a half. 14,000. Let's go. We're trying to hit, by the time spring ball rolls around, we want to be at 16 or 17,000. Let's go, Sooners fans. That would be awesome, and have 20,000 subscribers by the time, or more, by the time the football season rolls around. I think we can do it. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. We'll see you on OU Insider. We'll see you on the live tomorrow, Wednesday night. And we'll see you all on the next podcast as well. You guys have a blessed day.